Hey guys, welcome back to Anonymous Storytellers. It's been a while. I am Cole, and that is,
As you know it, Malcolm.
yeah. Sorry for the long pause. I was moving to a new studio, new setup, so this is our first recording back in it. But we had a lot of awesome things come out recently in the horror spectrum, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say kind of big news in the film world with two major films basically beating out major picture films now.
Yeah. They, I believe, were both started in YouTube and now transitioned into the full cinema scene, correct?
Yeah, no, they definitely transitioned into the major film industry.
We are, of course, talking about the Backrooms and Obsession. Have you seen them? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've had a chance to see both. They're honestly fantastic films. You have liminal horror and kind of a not necessarily a slasher, but like a classic genre horror film.
Yeah. I definitely think I liked Backrooms a bit more because we I was a fan of the original indie film he did. This series he did of lost footage on his YouTube site. Have you ever watched those?
I have, yeah. I mean, I think that's what's really interesting. You have someone who has created these short films within the space of Backrooms that was not truly owned by anybody, but kind of more the internet as a whole, just because it's like a culmination of a lot of different stories and interesting little tidbits here and there. So for him to have his own shorts and create this feature is insane and it's
Yeah.
awesome. And it's really cool to see where things go. But I would definitely say one of the bigger splashes right now is probably Obsession, just because we're
Very
talking
much
about
so.
lower budget and also very local Burbank. That's kind of
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're both really great for different reasons. But
Do you?
Backrooms is really cool for lore wise. I mean, there's a lot of like Easter eggs, little
Yeah.
hints to things in the film that are really interesting. Um, I mean, I don't think I could really spoil this movie at this point, but it's I'm not going to regardless. And
Yeah.
Obsession, you're talking about like it's a wish story, a wish gone wrong, which many people have had a lot of wishes, and you'd think it'd be more like a jinn or
Monkey's Paw.
a genie kind of story, but not at all. So it's a really cool take on that genre and explosive, funny, interesting, scary, all the above. And the back rooms, you have liminal horror space or liminal horror
Yeah.
and eerie contention, a lot of tense moments, and a little bit of comedy here and there. But it's true to the world that he has set up, and
Mm.
I'm excited to see where they continue. And even with Obsession, I'm curious to see where things go with that as well. Just
I
because that world is kind
yeah.
of crazy and really interesting. So
And I know he's announced he's making a new film continuing about ghost hunters and the fake ghost hunters then stumble into an actual haunting. The guy who directed Obsession. Also mentioning he's
uh,
going to release uh a director's cut of the of Obsession because they cut out a scene, the ending. He had a very different idea of the ending he wanted to make than we had.
well, he has an alternate ending,
Yeah.
but yeah, because the ending they chose, I think, is probably stronger.
Hmm.
But I think they would be interesting to see it nonetheless.
Agreed.
And Backrooms is also Backrooms is re-releasing in theaters, even though I don't think it's fully left. They're going to be having a director's extended edition as well. I think it's going to have like 10 to 15 minutes of new footage.
Wild.
And the Obsession thing, I feel like it's going to be kind of like a digital, like deleted scene in a sense.
I
Which is
agree
cool.
with you. You know, it'll be something like a. I don't know if they'll get a criterion, but it might be something that feels like a criterion. You know.
Maybe. It's a little early for that, but it could.
But speaking of obsession, we actually have a story we like to read today that is in an obsession kind of a world as well. Bit different. It was written 11 years ago by RapidElapid. I think I said that wrong. The names are weird. But that's what we're planning on reading today. Have you read any of this at all, or are you going into this blind?
I prefer to go in blind, honestly.
Okay. Well, let's jump into it then, shall we?
Obsessed. What I'm about to tell you, I've never told anyone. Life for me and my family has been difficult enough with everything that has happened. So I didn't want to throw another wrench into the situation. There's another reason behind my silence. It's my burden now. To my older brother, I'm so sorry for what you went through. All the time that we thought you were mentally ill. All the doctors, medications, and therapy. You never once complained. I now know why you did it. Because you knew the truth. You spent every day trying to save us. For the sake of privacy, I'll call myself Isaac, and my older brother, Brian. Brian was my older brother by 3 years. I know most stories about big brothers consist of being picked on, teased, bullied, or beat up. But my relationship was nothing like that with Brian. I would always tag along with him and his friends, and he always made an effort to include me. He wasn't only my brother, but my best friend. The person I looked up to most in this world. When Brian was a senior in high school, he had earned a baseball scholarship to a smaller Division I school. My family and I were so excited for him. After graduation, the summer came and went, and he headed off for college, and I began my sophomore year of high school. This is when things started to go downhill. About a month after school had started, I was heading into my last class of the day when I was called to the front office. I walked in to see my mom crying and my dad white as a sheet. They said that there had been an accident and that we needed to leave right now. Brian had been at a fall training for baseball. He was pitching and had a line drive hit him right in the face. It had just to the left of his forehead. Oblivious, everyone at the scene freaked out and ran to his aid. But after a few minutes of being a little woozy and shaken, he said he was fine. His coach still had him go to the athletic trainer, who said he most likely had a moderate concussion. After he left, he rejoined his teammates to head to the cafeteria for dinner. Apparently, while he was standing in the line, he collapsed on the ground. Brian was life flighted to a very good trauma unit to a hospital about an hour from where he was. He had severe brain swelling and a slight hemorrhage. He was rushed into emergency surgery immediately. After the longest hour of my life, the surgeon finally came out to talk to us. He said that Brian was stable for the moment and the bleeding had stopped, but he was in a coma. My parents wept, both of them. Have you ever seen your father cry? It is the most frightening thing I've ever experienced. You always see your father as the foundation, the one in the family to keep his composure and lead. It is a truly sinking feeling when you see someone who's so strong be broken. I just sat there, stunned. I didn't cry, mostly because I couldn't even process the situation that was happening around me. Why had this happened? Why us? Why Brian? One of the greatest, kindest humans I've ever encountered. It wasn't fair. My mom had always said, Isaac, everything happens for a reason. Bullshit. If there was fate, it wouldn't have allowed this to happen. At least my understanding of fate wouldn't have. I couldn't have known then, but I soon would.
Brian was in a coma for almost 2 weeks. Doctors had warned us for the worst. They had no idea if there would be any lasting mental damage or issues. The brain is a miraculous thing, they would tell us. Most likely to make us feel better. But to me, it just felt like false hope. When Brian woke up, we were all by his side, crying, laughing, smiling. Words still can't express the joy and relief I felt when I saw him groggily crack a smile and say, "Hey, little bro, you miss me?" It was a miracle. The doctors were astonished and ran a number of cognitive tests on him, all of which he passed easily. He was finally released from the hospital a week later. Much to our happiness, unfortunately, it was short-lived. Brian, under orders from the doctors, stayed at home for 2 weeks before he returned back to college so he could be monitored to make sure he was okay. The first thing we would notice was Brian began having terrible nightmares. We would wake up in the middle of the night to horrible, blood-curdling screams. My parents would rush in and wake him, only to have him cry his eyes out until he was so exhausted he fell back asleep. We asked him about the nightmares, but he never said a word of what he saw, always just giving a stoic expression and a quiet, "Can't remember." The third day he was home, I came home from school to find my mom asleep on the couch while my dad was still at work. My attention immediately turned to Brian, but I couldn't find him anywhere. As I made my way upstairs, I heard what sounded like a quiet conversation, but I couldn't make out what was being said. As I walked upstairs, I'm going to say it again. As I walked down the hallway to Brian's bedroom, I noticed that something was odd. In the bathroom beside Brian's room, the light would turn on, turn off, and then I would hear the sink run for a few seconds, only to be turned off, and the whole process started over. When I went in, I saw Brian muttering to himself. He would take 2 very precise steps forward, flip on the light, wait 2 seconds, then turn it off. He would then take the 2 steps back to the sink, but rather than turn around, he walked backwards, completely mimicking the 2 steps he took forward. Then he would wash his hands. I don't mean he would take a few scrubs and rinse. I mean, he went at it like a surgeon prepping for surgery. I finally asked him what he was doing. He looked exhausted and just, I don't know, sad. He looked at me and said, "It's just something I need to do." Over the next week, things got weirder and weirder. Brian began staying up all hours of the night, arranging things in a certain order. Checking locks, fixing something, only to fix 3 more times after that. My parents were finally concerned enough to take him back to the doctor, who then referred him to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist diagnosed Brian with OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, and gave him a prescription and the name of a therapist that could help him. My parents were relieved, but Brian never seemed to notice, always having that 1,000-yard stare. Brian returned to school, and my parents were hopeful that we all could return to our normal lives. After a week, my parents had only briefly talked to him through text messages, and he wouldn't return any of my calls or texts. Feeling beyond frustrated, I decided to visit him at school to see how he was doing. It would be the last time I saw my brother. Brian lived alone in a small apartment off campus. When I arrived, No lights appeared to be on, and no one answered when I knocked. Brian's car was parked out front, so I knew he was home. I checked the handle of the door, see if it was unlocked. And to my surprise, it was. The first thing I noticed when I entered was the mess everywhere. Except the mess seemed to have some kind of chaotic order to it that I could not see. On the ground, seemingly in the middle of all of it, I noticed Brian's prized possession, a baseball that had been autographed by his favorite Major League Baseball pitcher. I started to pick it up, when all of a sudden I heard a deranged scream say, "Don't touch it!" What I say next finally cracked me. Brian stood in the back corner, barely illuminated. As he stepped forward, he looked near death. His eyes were sunken in the dark patches underneath. His was incredibly pale and sickly longing. From the scraggly beard and messy hair, I could tell he hadn't even attempted any kind of personal hygiene. Everything came out as I collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, begging him to tell me what was wrong, pleading that he come home and get help. He walked over and gave me a hug, one that made me feel again the love that my brother had for me. When I looked at him, his face showed pity. "Isaac, I'll explain everything, but I need your word that you won't tell Mom or Dad or anyone we know what has happened. Will you do that for me?" What could I say except, yes. We sat down, and he told me everything. I still to this day don't know what to think, but I trusted Brian more than anyone I've ever known. This is what he told me. I'll let you decide what to believe.
Brian said, after he woke up from his coma, he started to see things. At first, he thought the light was playing with his eyes. A shadow would dart here or there, or he'll notice something out of the corner of his eye, but he just chalked it up to the injury he had sustained healing. That is until he began having nightmares. He explained that in his dreams he would see people from his life, like friends and family, doing things from the past, like family vacations or celebrations. But that wasn't the only thing he saw. He called them keepers. I don't know why, but that's what he always referred to them. They would consistently follow the people around, going everywhere they would. He said they didn't have a complete finite form, but they resembled a humanoid legs, with spindly arms and legs, a skinny body and a head off the shoulders. They walked on all fours, consistently following everyone around. They were featureless, completely black. But he said there was an energy to them, like they pulsed and shifted as they followed. He told me they weren't evil, but they weren't good either. They were fate. They are our destinations. The paths that we all put on. They influence us without our knowledge to make choices and decisions, to put us on a path that could lead us to happiness or death. After a few days of the dreams, he could see the keepers while he was awake. Whatever it is in this world, whether you call it luck, fate, karma, it can be manipulated to influence these beings. Something so small and so trivial, like flipping off a light switch, then back on and repeating, for some reason can give some control to the madness. I was speechless after all that. Was my brother insane? There's no way this could be true. When he was finished, he led me to the door, hugged me, and told me there was one last thing he needed to do. He told me he loved me, and asked me to remember my vow of silence, and that was it. The next day, my brother was found dead. He had hung himself in his bedroom. My family was devastated and in shock. After the funeral, a girl I didn't know approached me. She told me that she had been neighbors with my brother, that he had left a box on our doorstep with instructions given to me and only me. I thanked her, went home and shut the door to my room and opened it, and inside was a letter. Isaac, I'm sorry it had to be like this. This is the only way I could save you, Mom and Dad. The furnace had been had very bad wiring. It was going to burn the house down, taking you three with it. My death is the only way to change the path. I love you, little bro. Tell Mom and Dad I love them too. Brian.
After reading the letter, I asked my dad to inspect the furnace on a hunch. We had a repairman inspect it, and he gave us shocking news. A wire had been chewed through by a rodent, exposing the wires, interesting, to the surrounding material. He told us how lucky we were that he couldn't believe it hadn't caught fire yet. Brian gave us his life. Do you think everything happens for a reason?
Okay. Interesting. Wouldn't it have been easier to just contact his brother about the wire, though, instead of killing himself?
I mean, yeah, but clearly there were other things going on in his head, so that probably has more to do with it. But yeah, on a logical point, that's fair.
Yeah. Just also a writing point. I'm not. It didn't really grip me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got I don't know, I definitely was creeped out, but the pacing of it felt a little off, but it was still interesting.
It was definitely interesting. Yeah. I wanted more of the keepers and the obsession. It felt like felt like only so short. We barely got to immerse ourselves in his disorder, you know?
Yeah, we definitely got a snippet.
Still pretty good though, especially for this is his only post 11 years ago. Pretty good.
Yeah, no, I would say so.
And there's only a few grammatical errors, but like from other stuff we've read, this is definitely pretty good.
Especially considering how long ago this was and being a first post, it's very understandable.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to say?
Like I said, I enjoyed it. It was definitely really interesting. I'd like to see what this story could be expanded to if it were to be rewritten.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But
probably not. No.
Yeah.
It gives me some fun ideas that we could explore ourselves, but not much we can do with that, though.
Yeah.
But hopefully the writer continued writing after this. Who knows? And just post some other things. Who knows? Or made a new account.
Hopefully. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But that is all we have for this week. Next week we'll be doing another. Hopefully you guys listen in. As always, we are anonymous storytellers. Have a good night.
Deuces.